Matilda Obi didn't believe in distractions, especially not the tall, annoyingly perfect kind that swaggered through the 18th floor of Obi and Anthony Holdings like he owned the building. Technically, he did. Leonard Anthony, 35, Cosio, voted most captivating smile in a magazine she never read. The man had mastered the art of hovering near the office water cooler, charming assistants and associates alike with little effort. She watched them, her colleagues, flutter like naive butterflies while he stood there, sleeves rolled to the elbow, arms folded, and eyes that were criminally blue scanning the room with quiet amusement. Matilda would rather swallow nails than fall for it. She had a mission, and that mission did not include tripping over 6-foot-something of arrogant, gym-chiseled billionaire charm. She had climbed too far, worked too hard, sacrificed too much to be seen as another swooning woman at Leonard's feet. Matilda, her assistant Kemi whispered one afternoon, leaning over the edge of her glass-walled office. "He's staring again." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Let him." Kemi smirked. "Girl, I swear he only stands there when you're working late." "Coincidence," Matilda muttered, but her fingers hesitated on the keyboard. Just for a moment. Just long enough to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he did. She shut her laptop with a snap. The next morning began like any other. Power smoothie. Black pantsuit. 8:30 on the dot. Matilda liked predictability. But predictability shattered the moment her father summoned her to the main boardroom. She stepped inside, heels echoing against the marble floor. Her father, Obi, yes, really, stood near the window, his silver hair catching the sun. Leonard leaned against the conference table, arms folded. Her jaw clenched. "This better be important," she said tightly. Ignoring the casual way Leonard looked at her like she was a Rubik's Cube he couldn't wait to solve. "It is," her father said. "The Ikoyi waterfront redevelopment project has just landed in our hands." Matilda's heart skipped. That was the crown jewel. A 10 billion naira venture. High profile, legacy defining. "And?" she asked cautiously. "You and Leonard will co-lead it." Silence. Matilda stared at her father. "You're joking." Leonard's expression mirrored hers. "You expect us to work together? You're the strongest minds in the company," Obi said, his voice firm. "You balance each other." "I don't need balancing," Matilda snapped. "And I work better alone," Leonard added, looking at her as if this arrangement personally insulted him. Obi sighed. "Grow up, both of you. This is about the company. The board has approved it. You're in this together." Matilda's throat dried. She opened her mouth to object, but her father's eyes shut her down. "I'll see you at the kickoff meeting tomorrow," he said, then walked out, leaving them behind. The door clicked. Matilda turned to Leonard. "Don't get in my way." He pushed off the table. "I won't if you don't get in mine." Their eyes locked, blue storm against brown fire, and in that quiet tension, a line was drawn. Later that evening, Matilda sat in the rooftop cafe of the Khalifa Grand Residences, sipping a hibiscus drink while Lagos glimmered below. She couldn't stop replaying the moment in her head. Leonard Anthony, of all people. Why him? Sure, he was brilliant. She couldn't deny that. His instincts in real estate and luxury development were unmatched. Clients loved him. The board adored him. His charisma masked a ruthless efficiency that made even seasoned investors uneasy. And yes, she'd noticed the arms under those custom-made shirts, and the way his voice dipped an octave when he was serious. But she would never admit it aloud. "Trouble sleeping?" a familiar voice said behind her. She turned, and there he was, Leonard himself, casual in a navy linen shirt, 2 buttons undone, holding a glass of scotch like it was part of him. "This is my spot," she said coolly. He pulled out a chair. "Ours now, remember?" She rolled her eyes but didn't stop him. They sat in silence for a moment, the night thick with the scent of rain and faint music from below. "I don't like you," she said suddenly. Leonard chuckled. "You think I like you?" She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. His face, though relaxed, carried tension around the eyes. Tired, maybe even a little Lonely? He took a sip of his drink. We don't have to like each other. Just get the job done. Matilda leaned forward. Good, because I don't mix business with pleasure. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Neither do I. And yet, as they sat under the Lego stars, something unspoken passed between them. Not warmth, not yet, but heat, and that would be far harder to ignore. The kickoff meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp at the firm's innovation lab, an elegant glass wing overlooking the Atlantic, complete with smartboards, mood lighting, and a view of the water that whispered luxury. Matilda arrived at 8:45 as always. Her notes were color-coded, tabs in place, every investor profile memorized. Leonard walked in at 8:59, sipping black coffee like he had nothing to prove, hair tousled in a way that was definitely not accidental. He nodded politely, took the seat opposite hers, and opened his tablet without a word. She could already feel a headache coming. "Shall we?" he said with that signature half-smile that made interns dizzy and Matilda homicidal. They presented as a unit to the board of directors. She took the numbers, strategy, risk assessments. He handled the vision pitch, design aesthetics, and long-term monetization. It was like watching jazz meet symphony. Somehow they didn't clash. They complemented. Against her will, Matilda felt the room start to shift. Executives leaned in. The chairman nodded thoughtfully. The VP of Finance whispered something about unmatched synergy. By the end of the meeting, their proposal had been unanimously approved. Still, as they exited the room, Matilda refused to acknowledge the small thrill running through her. Instead, she said, "You almost missed the zoning brief on slide 12. Leonard didn't even look offended. I left it out on purpose. It's more impressive when you correct me." She blinked. "Excuse me?" He finally looked at her, eyes lazy but razor-sharp. "You're smart, Matilda. I know how to let you shine." She stared, stunned. No smugness, no sarcasm, just acknowledgement. He walked off with that easy confidence, leaving her standing there, angry that her heart was fluttering. Later that week, they visited the Ikoyi site. The waterfront gleamed beneath a crisp blue sky, and construction markers dotted the land like chess pieces. It was hot, humid, the kind of heat that clung to skin like a second layer. Leonard rolled up his sleeves as they toured the property with engineers. His white shirt clung slightly to his chest, and Matilda cursed the way her eyes drifted there. Focus. Focus on the land. Focus on the project. Not on the man currently smiling and talking animatedly with a surveyor like he wasn't also irritatingly good-looking. As they rounded the final lot, Leonard leaned closer. "You've got a bit of sunburn. Your cheeks are pink." "I'm fine," she said stiffly. "You'd tell me if you weren't?" "No." He laughed. A low, amused sound that tugged something deep inside her. "You're impossible. And you're arrogant," she fired back. He shrugged. "Guilty." Then he paused. "But you're also something else." "What?" He looked at her, and for the first time, there was no teasing. "You're extraordinary." Matilda turned away quickly, heart pounding. "Stop trying to charm me. I'm not. I'm just noticing." Over the next 2 weeks, things got weirder. Leonard stopped hovering at the water cooler. Instead, he brought her coffee before morning meetings, never with a word, always with the exact oat-milk ratio she preferred. He stayed late, working beside her in silence. They'd review contracts, sketch layouts on touchscreens, bicker over marble versus travertine, but beneath it all was something simmering. One night, as rain poured across the windows of the boardroom and thunder rolled in the distance, she caught him watching her again. "What now?" she asked, not looking up. He hesitated. "You always chew your pen cap when you're solving a tough budget formula." She froze. "You notice that?" "I notice everything." She set the pen down. Slowly. "This isn't a game, Leonard." "I know," he said, voice quiet, and for a flicker of a second he looked vulnerable. Like maybe, behind all the gloss and ego, there was a man who wasn't playing anymore. The next day, disaster struck. A junior analyst accidentally deleted a batch of investor commitments from the shared drive. Gone. Hours of progress erased. Leonard exploded. Matilda had never seen him lose composure before. He paced, barking into the phone, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. When he slammed the phone down and turned toward her, she raised a hand. "Don't you dare yell at me." His eyes blazed. "You think I'd blame you for this? Considering how you're acting?" He exhaled sharply. "This is my fault. I should have double-backed. I got comfortable." Matilda walked to the center table, tapping a USB. "You didn't get comfortable. You got human." He looked at her, brow furrowed. "I have backups," she added, cool as ever. His jaw dropped. "You what?" "Auto-saved every document on an external. I know people make mistakes. That's why I always plan for them." Leonard just stared. Then he did the unthinkable. He laughed. Deep, grateful, astonished. "You really are something else," he murmured. And in that moment, Matilda smiled, just a little. Maybe oil and water didn't always need to blend. Maybe they could burn together, brilliantly. Matilda Obi had a problem. A tall, infuriatingly perceptive, and devastatingly handsome problem. For weeks now, Leonard Anthony had hovered in the tight space between annoying colleague and something dangerously close to irresistible. First, it was just heat, static glances, stolen looks across glass partitions. Shared elevator silences thick with tension neither of them acknowledged. She brushed it off. Lust was predictable, fleeting, but now it was something else. It was the way she caught herself reaching for her coffee every morning, wondering if he'd already dropped it off at her desk like he often did, silently, without a note. It was how he started calling her Matt when they worked late, the nickname wrapped in a low, rich voice that made her shiver. She didn't want this. She didn't do this. Not with men like him. And yet, here she was, glaring at her own reflection in the mirror of the executive restroom, trying to calm her pulse because he had complimented her new hairstyle in the lift and it made her feel warm. Ridiculous. She was Matilda Obi, daughter of a Lagos legend, rising star in luxury real estate, woman of logic and grit. But logic was failing her, and grit was slipping through her fingers. That night, Lagos roared with rain. A tropical storm swept through Victoria Island, flooding the streets with silver sheets of water and casting dramatic shadows across the Obi and Anthony headquarters. Matilda stayed late at the office, of course she did. The final deck for Phase 1 of the Ikoyi project had to be flawless. She was poring over design elevations in the private collaboration suite when the lights flickered. Thunder boomed. And then blackout. The silence was thick. A second later, dim golden emergency lights bathed the room in soft glow, casting long shadows across the floor-to-ceiling windows. She sighed and reached for her phone. Then the door opened. Leonard walked in, damp from the rain, navy blazer over his shoulder, his white dress shirt clinging faintly to his skin. They stared at each other for a moment. "You're still here," he said, voice calm. "So are you." He dropped his blazer on a chair and stepped in. The soft light made him look older, softer, human. "I figured you'd try to redo the landscape section on your own," he said, walking toward the screen. Matilda rolled her eyes. "Because you butchered the original." "No," he corrected gently. "Because I left it unfinished. I wanted you to have a say." She looked at him sharply. "Since when?" Leonard shrugged. "Since I realized you're right more often than I am." The room fell into silence again, only the rain drumming softly against the glass. Matilda turned back to the screen. "Well then, let's finish it." But as she tried to focus, she felt him watching her again. That gaze, that heavy, searching gaze. "Matilda," he said quietly. She didn't look up. "I'm not trying to ruin your rhythm," he added. "But I need to say this." She paused. "I underestimated you," he continued. "Not your work ethic. Everyone knows you're brilliant. But your fire, your ability to lead, to hold this entire company up when everyone else is too busy being loud." She looked at him now, eyes wide. "You make me want to do better," he added. "Even when I hate how you make me feel." She took a breath, heart hammering. Leonard. He stepped closer, now just a breath away. Tell me you don't feel it too. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. His hand brushed her elbow, slow, deliberate. You're dangerous, she whispered. So are you, he replied. And then, like lightning cracking the storm outside, he kissed her. It wasn't polite. It wasn't restrained. It was months of tension exploding in a moment of reckless vulnerability. His lips met hers with a hunger that stunned her. Confident, searching, but not rushed. She gasped, fingers tangling in his shirt as he pulled her closer, his body pressed against hers. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When the kiss finally broke, she stared at him, dazed, lips tingling, breath short. That shouldn't have happened, she said, voice shaky. But it did. He touched her cheek gently. And I'd do it again. Her mind screamed logic. Consequences. Career. Company. Power dynamics. Her father. But her heart whispered something else. Something softer. Something dangerous. The next morning, Matilda arrived late. She avoided the mirror. Avoided the receptionist's knowing glance. Avoided the space near the water cooler. Leonard was already in the meeting room, looking calm, collected, impossibly so. He nodded. Matilda. She responded with a curt, morning. The air between them was frosty again, like nothing had happened, like her world hadn't shifted under his hands, like he hadn't tasted the most guarded part of her soul. She kept it professional, eyes glued to spreadsheets, voice neutral. But every time he leaned in, every time he said Matt under his breath, her body flared in response. After the presentation, he stopped her at the exit. Can we talk? About the layout? She asked, not meeting his eyes. No. About last night. There's nothing to talk about. Leonard frowned. You don't believe that. She straightened. It was a mistake. His voice dropped. A mistake? Or something you're afraid of? She didn't answer. Instead, she walked away, heels echoing like thunder across the polished floors. For 3 whole days they didn't speak. Not outside of project briefings. Not during investor dinners. Not even during the groundbreaking ceremony at the Ikoyi waterfront where reporters snapped photos and city officials gave long-winded speeches. Matilda was cold. Leonard, professional to a fault. And that silence, polished, practiced, painful, was the loudest sound in the world. He didn't corner her. Didn't text her. Didn't bring her coffee. He gave her space, the kind of space that made her chest ache more than she expected. Matilda told herself it was for the best. She had drawn the line. She was protecting her reputation, the company, her father's legacy. She had made the right choice. So why did it feel like she was punishing herself? The night of the Lagos real estate gala arrived like a slow drumbeat. Hosted at the glimmering Khalifa Grand Hotel, the event promised opulence, politics, and brutal networking. The ballroom was drenched in gold and sapphire decor, the chandeliers reflecting 1,000 ambitions in every direction. Matilda stepped out of her car in a navy blue silk gown, sculpted to perfection, her braids pinned into an elegant twist. Her makeup was subtle but striking. She looked like royalty, unbothered, powerful. She didn't feel it. Inside, the air buzzed with champagne bubbles and old money. Leonard arrived nearly 30 minutes later, wearing a black tuxedo that made half the women in the room glance twice. Matilda saw him before he saw her. Her heart stuttered. Why did he have to look that good? Their eyes met. He didn't smile, just walked toward her like the room didn't exist. Matilda, he said, handing her a glass of champagne. She took it. Leonard. They stood under the edge of a chandelier, the soft golden light dancing over them. People passed, whispered, glanced, but it was as if time had paused. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, he said softly. She sipped, eyes forward. Don't do this. You felt it too. That's not the point. Then what is? He asked, his voice low. Why are you pushing me away when you want this as badly as I do? Matilda looked at him now, full force. Her eyes were tired, honest, fragile. Because you're Leonard Anthony. Because I'm Matilda Obi. Because everything about this would become gossip in 5 seconds. Because my father would never forgive me if I gave myself over to a man who threatens my focus. Leonard leaned in, his lips close to her ear. Your father loves you, but he's not the one who wakes up thinking about you every morning. Or goes to bed replaying the sound of your voice. She turned sharply. Stop. He gently touched her hand. Then stop pretending I don't matter to you. Her fingers trembled under his. That terrified her more than anything else. I can't afford this, she whispered. You can't afford to deny it either. But before she could answer, a photographer called their names. They both turned, smiled. The moment shattered. Matilda fled the ballroom and stood alone on the rooftop terrace, staring at the city below. The skyline sparkled. But all she could think about was how close she was to falling. For someone she swore she hated. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. I don't know what to do with you, she said, barely audible. Leonard's voice was soft. You don't have to do anything. Just feel. She turned to him now. I've spent my whole life building this, she said, gesturing to the world around her. This career, this respect, this version of myself that no one could ever look down on. I know. And I don't want to lose myself in a man. He stepped closer. I don't want you to lose yourself. I want you to find more of you with me. She closed her eyes. His next words were barely a whisper. I've never met anyone who scares me the way you do, because you see through everything. She opened her eyes again. You scare me too. He reached for her hand. This time, she let him hold it. I'm not asking you to risk your future for me, he said. But I'm willing to fight for a place in it, if you'll let me. She didn't reply. She didn't have to, because in that moment, standing in heels under Lego stars, hand wrapped in his, the truth felt clearer than ever. The next morning, the office was quiet, early, still. Matilda entered the boardroom with coffee for 2. Leonard was already there, scrolling through building specs. He looked up and blinked when she placed a cup in front of him. You got my oat milk right? He asked cautiously. She gave him a look. Do I look like someone who guesses? He smiled. Truce. She leaned against the table. Maybe. He stood, took a sip, then walked around the table until he stood in front of her. Too close again. What happens now? He asked. She thought for a long time, then said softly, we close the deal. We finish the project. And then we see. Leonard nodded. Fair enough. He stepped back, gave her space. But he was smiling, and so was she. The final investor meeting had all the makings of a corporate war. High stakes, sharp suits, and a conference room full of sharks who only respected numbers and results. Matilda sat at the head of the long obsidian table, her hair slicked back into a low twist, her lips a deep plum that commanded attention. Her presentation binder sat unopened in front of her, because she didn't need it. She knew every figure, every clause, every inch of the Ikoyi waterfront redevelopment project like it was carved into her bones. Leonard walked in precisely 30 seconds before the meeting began, looking calm as ever in a tailored navy suit. Their eyes met. No tension, just understanding. They were ready. For the next 90 minutes, they danced. Leonard painted the vision with charm and precision. The architecture, the lifestyle, the future value. Matilda anchored it with facts, timing, environmental data, and bulletproof ROI projections. By the time they finished, the room fell into a reverent hush. Then applause. Obi stood at the far end of the table, slow clapping with an expression Matilda hadn't seen in years. Pride. The deal was done. 10 billion naira. Sealed. And they'd done it together. Back in the elevator, descending from the 20th floor, silence stretched between them. Then Matilda looked up at Leonard. We did it. He didn't smile. He just studied her. You were extraordinary. She laughed quietly. You already said that. No. Before I thought it. Now I know it. The elevator dinged on the parking floor. The doors opened. Neither of them moved. I want to be honest with you, he said, voice lower now. Go on. I was never scared of business deals or boardroom battles. But you? You scared the hell out of me. Matilda tilted her head. Why? Because I didn't expect to meet someone who made me want more. More what? More than charm. More than profit. More than surface-level anything. His voice dropped even further. I want to build something with you. Something real. Matilda's chest rose and fell. You sure? She asked, tone quiet. Because I'm not the easy kind. I'll challenge you, call you out, make you rethink everything you thought you knew. I'd expect nothing less, he whispered. She leaned in slightly. And I still don't mix business with pleasure. He smirked. Then we'll have to become something more than both. She blinked, then laughed. God, you're infuriating. But you like me now. She didn't answer. He stepped forward slowly. Matilda. She met his eyes. And just before the doors slid closed, she kissed him. Not a hesitant kiss this time. It was certain, grounded, unapologetic. A kiss that said, I fought it. I hated it. But it was always you. 2 months later, the new site signage for the legacy at Ikoyi shimmered under the morning sun. Construction crews worked in harmony, the luxury units already 70% sold. The project was a financial and architectural triumph. The press hailed it as a turning point for Lagos real estate. But for Matilda and Leonard, it was something else entirely. It was the bridge, the space between who they were and who they were becoming. They stood together at the center of the site, boots in red soil, white helmets tucked under their arms. Her father approached from the edge of the lot, his salt and pepper hair ruffled by the wind. He smiled at them, both of them. I didn't think this pairing would work, he admitted. Neither did we, Leonard said, slipping his hand into Matilda's. Obi chuckled. Well, I've been wrong before. He turned to Matilda. You've grown into the kind of woman this company was always meant for. And if I step down next year, Matilda blinked. You'd name me? You've already earned it. She swallowed hard. Thank you, Dad. He nodded once. And Leonard. Yes, sir. Don't screw this up. Leonard grinned. Wouldn't dream of it. Obi walked away, whistling as he watched the diggers move earth and dreams into place. That evening, Matilda sat on Leonard's balcony overlooking Banana Island. She wore his white shirt and her favorite red wine smile. He sat beside her, barefoot, shirtless, legs stretched out, one hand loosely holding hers. You remember the first time we talked about this project? He asked. Of course. I threatened to walk over burning coals before letting you stall my career. He chuckled. And now, she leaned against him. Now I want to walk beside you. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I like the sound of that. She glanced at him. So, what happens next? He looked out at the sea. We build more. Projects. A future. A life. She raised an eyebrow. You proposing already, Mr. Anthony? He turned to her, playful but dead serious. You'd know when I do. It won't be in borrowed wine-stained pajamas. Matilda laughed, her voice a soft ribbon of sound carried into the night. And in the space between two people once made of fire and ice, something far more dangerous had formed. Something enduring. Something warm. Something called love. 6 months later, Victoria Island. Lagos, a new plaque gleamed in the morning sun. The Obi Anthony Foundation for Urban Futures, a joint legacy in architecture, community, and possibility. The grand opening was held in the firm's latest project, the Legacy at Ikoyi, a luxury residential tower that had become the talk of West Africa. But the real heart of the day wasn't in the marble floors or panoramic elevators. It was in the people. Young interns in navy blue suits, local vendors who now had space in the estate's retail gallery, female architects who had shadowed Matilda for weeks and now beamed as they handed out program brochures. Inside the airy lobby, Leonard stood in a crisp gray suit, quietly watching it all unfold. He looked calmer now, more grounded. The sharp edges still remained. He would always be Leonard Anthony, but there was a softness in his smile that hadn't existed before her. Before Matilda. She appeared at the far end of the room in a burgundy pantsuit, hair in a sleek bun, heels clicking softly on Italian marble. The crowd parted as she walked toward him. When she reached him, she said simply, "They're here." Leonard raised a brow. "Who?" She turned her head slightly, and there, walking through the entrance, was Obi, in a soft linen agbada, flanked by Leonard's mother, Mrs. Francine Anthony, wearing a navy fascinator and a face full of emotion. Matilda gave Leonard a sly smile. "I believe this is the first time our parents have ever been in the same room willingly." Leonard took her hand. "And no furniture has been thrown. Progress." They laughed quietly, fingers intertwined. As the ribbon-cutting ceremony began, Matilda was called to the podium. She looked at Leonard, who nodded. "You got this." Matilda turned to the crowd. Her voice was firm, proud. This project was never about just buildings. It was about vision, about daring to blend fire and ice, grit and grace, logic and heart. Today, we don't just open a building. We open doors. For the youth. For future designers. For those who were told they didn't belong in boardrooms or on blueprints. We built this with love, strategy, and an unexpected kind of partnership. Her eyes found Leonard's. Turns out, the person I spent the most time avoiding ended up showing me the best version of myself. The audience applauded. Her father wiped a tear. Leonard clapped with the pride of a man who knew what it cost her to get there. That night, they returned home. To their new penthouse apartment in Eco-Atlantic, glass walls, warm lighting, and the soft hum of the city far below. Matilda kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the sofa. "I think I've officially smiled for 10 hours straight," she groaned. Leonard walked over with a glass of chilled rose. "You were perfect." "I was exhausted." He kissed her forehead. "Still perfect." She took the wine, sipped, then looked at him. "I never imagined this," she said. "You and me. The company. The foundation. Peace." Leonard knelt down beside her. "You know what I imagined?" "What?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Leonard, I didn't want it to happen this fast," he admitted. "But when I think about everything I've built, every structure, every number, every win, it's all meaningless without you standing beside me. I don't want a future that doesn't include your laughter echoing down the halls or your coffee order waiting beside mine." He opened the box. A ring. Elegant. Timeless. "Matilda. Marry me, Matilda Obi," he whispered. "Let's build forever." Tears brimmed in her eyes. She didn't hesitate. "Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. She tackled him into a kiss that tasted like salt and wine and every victory they never saw coming. Outside, the Lagos skyline shimmered. And inside, two people who once lived in war had finally built a world worth living in. Together, forever. In a world of boardrooms, billion-naira deals, and guarded hearts, sometimes love finds a way through the cracks. Matilda and Leonard thought they were enemies, two forces destined to clash. But fate had other plans, and what started as rivalry became a legacy. Because sometimes the heart doesn't follow logic. It follows the one person who sees past your fire and chooses to stay. If the story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And remember, love can bloom even in the coldest places, if you're brave enough to let it in. Subscribe for more powerful African love stories.